Okay, and we're back with another episode of the Seth Solo Side Quest. I'm Seth from the Learning Stunner podcast, and it's episode 34 of my side quest. Now, in this episode, we're going to talk about, it's going to be heavily WWE based this episode, because we've got a couple Bleacher Report articles that I want to react to. The first one being regarding John Cena and some potential WrestleMania 41 opponents, and the next one being around Pentagon and Fatu and who has the highest ceiling. I think both will be interesting to give my takes on, and both will be interesting to sort of talk through and hear my thoughts on. So let's kick it off with the John Cena one. Now, John Cena's in an interesting situation because it's his last WrestleMania, but it's not his last match. Where typically, in my opinion, where if you're going to have your final match, it should be at a WrestleMania, right? So you should end your career at WrestleMania is what I'm saying. Not that John Cena can't go for the rest of the year. John Cena can definitely go for the rest of the year, but for storyline purposes, for booking purposes, your final match should be at WrestleMania. Like your John Cena, you would main event at WrestleMania one of the nights, probably preferably in my opinion, he main event night 2, but he'd probably in reality main event night 1. If it was his last match at WrestleMania, it's not. If it was, my obvious option would be Cena v Orton would be the obvious one for me. But to Bleacher Report, that's just an honourable mention, and that's mostly because they want to save it for later on in the year, which makes sense considering Cena's going to be wrestling after WrestleMania 41. So it's going to be his last WrestleMania, not his last match. If it was his last match, then I would say Randy Orton, but it's not. So, I mean, I still think it should be Randy Orton, but now by the time this episode comes out, it'll be start of March. By the time I'm recording this, end of February, so there won't be enough time to build the Cena v Orton storyline the way it should be built. So it probably won't be Randy Orton v Cena at WrestleMania. But that was an honourable mention from Bleacher Report. Number 5, they've got Roman Reigns. Now, this match has already happened. It happened at the SummerSlam, and that was like the official passing of the torch, in my opinion. It was the SummerSlam 2021. That was that was the official passing of the torch. Them rematching it at WrestleMania 41 doesn't do much for either guy, in my opinion. What are you gonna have? You're gonna have Cena lose again, or you have Cena lose and Roman win. It doesn't do nothing for Roman. Roman doesn't need this anymore. He's not got the championship. Roman is probably going to be facing Seth Rollins, which, in my opinion, has been way overdone by this point. But it seems like WWE is still hot on it, and there's a large part of the fan base that still seems to be very interested in that storyline. I guess that might be an option for Roman Reigns, but I don't think Roman Reigns v John Cena is likely to happen at WrestleMania 41. I think Roman Reigns got his own storyline going on with Paul and CM Punk and Seth, and John Cena, I think he deserves something a bit better. To be fair, not to say that a WrestleMania match, Roman v John Cena, isn't a huge match. In terms of box office names, that's probably some of the two biggest names in wrestling history that could realistically happen. But I think it's unlikely, but not a terrible shout, in my opinion. Not a terrible shout. Then next, they've got Logan Paul. And to be honest, I don't like it because Logan Paul isn't worthy. To be honest, Logan Paul's not worthy to wrestle John Cena in his final WrestleMania. He's not. The match itself would be a good match because it would be heavily scripted, heavily planned out. Everything to the very last step of that match would be planned out, and it would be executed very well, because as we know, when matches are heavily planned out and when you can go move by move, step by step with Logan Paul, he can put on a good match. But it's when you're putting him on Raw, short notice, call it in the ring, he's got no chance because he's not a wrestler. He's a good performer, so he can perform when it's laid out to him. He's capable of that, but he's not capable of calling a match in the ring, which, no shade, that's a very difficult thing to do. I sure as hell couldn't do that. But Logan Paul's just not worthy. Despite the match, probably would be a good match. But like I said, he's just not worthy. CM Punk, I do like this one quite a bit. CM Punk would be my second option behind Randy Orton. But I do really like this one because there's so much story there. And to be honest, John Cena probably is... Well, John Cena is CM Punk's biggest rival. I don't think CM Punk is John Cena's biggest rival, but he's certainly up there. He's probably 2 or 3, to be honest. But both guys are mid-40s, pushing 50 at this point. I'm not sure. This won't be as good of a match as their original in 2011. Obviously, it's 14 years later. but the story's there. Both guys have changed quite a bit in those 14 years, to say the least. In ring, they'd put on a decent match, but it wouldn't be, like I said, it wouldn't be anything near their 2011 match. But I do like the story there. I like that CM Punk's come back, and he wants to face, if he wants to face Cena in his final WrestleMania match. But it looks like they might be doing potentially a triple threat at WrestleMania with Punk, Roman, and Rollins, which would be a really good match. I think CM Punk being the third man in that match offers a lot more unpredictability, and it adds that additional sort of, like I said, unpredictability and unpredictable element there by having Punk getting it. If it was just Roman v Seth, you've got the Shield storyline. It writes itself, and that's boring. It's been overdone in my opinion. But you had CM Punk in there. You've got the undertones with Paul Heyman and Roman. You've got obviously Seth and Punk. There's rivalry there as well. There's a lot of moving parts there, which makes for a more intricate and interesting storyline in my opinion. So I'd want to see them do that triple threat match. But I would like a John Cena v CM Punk match at some point this year. If it's not a WrestleMania, again, like I said, I'm recording this episode, back end of February. It'll drop start of March. In my opinion, there should be more build up for John Cena's last WrestleMania match. We should already have a good idea of who it's going to be, because this storyline needs to be built from now until WrestleMania. Ideally, even before, but whatever. Obviously, we've got the Elimination Chamber. We don't know what the outcome of that is going to be. So, until we know the outcome of that, it's obviously going to be difficult. These are just predictions, right? But I would like a CM Punk v John Cena match. That would be pretty good. Cody Rhodes, they've got as well. Again, Cody Rhodes. It makes sense in some ways where you'd have Cody Rhodes, I'm assuming, beat John Cena, and I guess it would be sort of passing of the torch again. I guess that's okay. But again, neither guy really needs it. Cody Rhodes doesn't need that win. Cody Rhodes is the WWE champion. He doesn't need to beat John Cena. And I doubt Cena would win the belt. To be honest, I would love to see Cena win the belt, actually. I would love to see Cena win the Elimination Chamber, then win the belt. That would be an amazing moment, and have Cena go on a run for the rest of the year as champion, and then retire as champ, and then they do a tournament with loads of these top-level guys, Kevin Owens, Cody Rhodes, Punk, Rollins, Roman, and do like a 6-man or 8-man tournament for the world title. That would be amazing. I'd really enjoy that. So if they do Rhodes v Cena at WrestleMania and Cena wins, then I'm happy with that. I will take that 24. I'll take that 100 times out of 100. 10 times out of 10, I'll take that. But if you have Cena v Rhodes and Rhodes wins, kind of pointless. You've just had Cena, his last ever WrestleMania, and he's just lost to Cody Rhodes, who, in my opinion, his steam's running out. His character is starting to change a bit, and they need that heel turn. They need that heel turn, and perhaps if they did that heel turn for the Cena match, that could potentially give Cody Rhodes a new leash on life. A new lease on life, if that makes sense, where it's now like he's a completely different character where he's turned heel, and now he's going to have like a second window as a champion, if that makes sense. But mixed feelings about that one. Just like anything in wrestling, it depends on the execution. On paper, I'm sure these guys would put on a really good match, and in terms of star power, they're more than capable of main eventing any night of a WrestleMania, night 1 or night 2. But that goes without saying, it's John Cena and Cody Rhodes, right? But it really just depends on, like I said, the execution, the storyline, the character work leading up to it. Will Rhodes turn heel, and then Rhodes v Cena, and Rhodes wins, and that sort of solidifies Cody Rhodes' heel turn? Then I'm actually more open to that. But if it's just how both of these guys are now, where Cody's still a babyface, Cena's a babyface, and his babyface be babyface, and they're respectful, and then Cena loses, that's a pretty boring outcome for me. So it's either Rhodes turns heel and retains, or both of them are faces, and Cena wins the title and holds it until he retires, which I would love to see happen, and I think should happen. And the last one they've got is Bron Breakker Now, Bron Breakker wouldn't be my pick for his last WrestleMania match. Bron Breakker would be my pick for his last ever match, potentially. But Cena v Bron Breakker, because you know Bron Breakker would win that match. The way Cena is, I doubt Cena would be like, well, this is the first young star we've got coming up in a while, and I'm just going to beat him at WrestleMania. I don't think Cena would want that. I don't think that's what WWE needs either. If that match was to happen, Breakker would go over, but at the same time, a win over John Cena doesn't mean anywhere near as much as it used to. And it hurts me to say that, to be honest. It does kind of hurt me to say that because Cena was the guy in WWE for so long, but these past, I want to say, 5, 6, 7 years, he's just been basically a jobber. In terms of, he's not winning another championship. Anyone you face him against in a storyline, they're just using Cena to get over, right? And Cena's too good for that, particularly at his last ever WrestleMania, right? So that's Bleacher Report's number one option, and I understand it. But Bron Breakker's the Intercontinental Champion. He's one of the youngest, well, the youngest upcoming star in WWE. All the other stars in WWE are all guys late 30s, pushing 40s. And in Cena and CM Punk's case, mid 40s, pushing 50, right? So I understand that would be, again, that would actually be a appropriate passing of the torch. In that case, actually. Because you've got Bron Breakker, who's actually a young wrestler, against John Cena, who's actually an experienced wrestler, well, rather than passing the torch where you've got Cody Rhodes, who's already the champion, beating Cena, and then kind of passing the torch that way, which doesn't really work because Cody Rhodes is already the champion. Same with Roman Reigns, where Roman's already beaten him. You're not really passing the torch, you're just kind of just having a match for the sake of it, in that sense. But Bron Breakker's not a bad pick. Not who my pick would be for his last WrestleMania match. My pick for his last Mania match would either be Cody Rhodes or CM Punk. So yeah, Cody Rhodes or CM Punk would be my pick because Cody Rhodes, there is potential for the storyline to be really good there. Potential for it to be. Again, like I said, it's all about execution. The potential is definitely there. And then CM Punk, that storyline sort of writes itself. But obviously CM Punk's kind of tied in with the Roman Reigns storyline, so we'll see what they want to do there. And the other article we've got is another Bleacher Report one, asking between Penta and Jacob Fatu, who's got the higher ceiling. Now, this is an interesting one. My immediate reaction to that is Jacob Fatu. Even though I absolutely love Penta. Penta's one of my favourite wrestlers and has been for a very long time. I've been a fan since Lucha Underground. Loved the stuff he was doing there. They built him up amazing. Character work was amazing. The match with Vampira, Ultima Lucha, was an amazing match in my opinion. The blood, the gore, the flaming tables. It's everything that wrestling needs. It's everything that's missing in wrestling right now. It's storyline, it's brutality, it's beatdowns, it's blood, it's extreme. Like I said, everything that wrestling is missing right now, Pentagon and Bro captured in that Ultima Lucha match. Of course, Pentagon was the Lucha Underground champion. He was also TNA Impact champion, and I'm sure was tag team champion in AEW, and may have been like trios champion as well. Pentagon was, ever since Pentagon left Lucha Underground, no company has been able to capture the character work that he was capable of doing in Lucha Underground elsewhere. Which makes sense because Lucha Underground was a very unique situation where it wasn't your average wrestling show. It just wasn't. It wasn't your come out, cut a promo, have a match, tag team match, backstage segment. It was shot like a movie, shot like an actual TV show. And that allowed for wrestlers to sort of explore characters a bit more. And you would see guys with actual characters. They weren't just wrestlers coming out and having matches. These were guys who had thought through characters, that had character arcs, like Pentagon, like Mil Muertes, like Prince Puma, like a lot of these guys. Phoenix, Matanza. A lot of these guys actually had character arcs, which is very rare in wrestling. WWE is starting to do that a bit more now, to be fair, but back then when Lucha Underground was around, it was not really happening in wrestling. Wrestlers in Lucha Underground, but in my opinion, a lot of his momentum was lost after Lucha Underground. And once he left Lucha Underground, a lot of his momentum was lost. And even though he's able to put on great matches, and even though he had success in TNA, it just wasn't the same. The saying is, the vibe was off. It was not the same, right? And TNA is less than. The nature of TNA is sort of less than. Even though, to be fair to Penta, he was sort of the face of that sort of rejuvenated TNA, where TNA was actually starting to consistently put on some really good events around this time. I want to say it was around 2018, 2019 times. You know, Penta was part of that TNA roster that was sort of rebuilding the brand in a lot of sense. So to be fair to him, he needs to take a lot of credit for that, because TNA was in a awful position. An awful position. They were clowned on. Nobody was watching their TV. They were losing loads of money. They were in a very bad position. And Penta was one of the guys that really brought it back. Then he went to AEW and just was completely misused. Not misused, was underutilized. He was purely just a tag team guy in AEW. Purely just a tag team guy. Him and his brother Ray Phoenix. And they're a great tag team, but both of these guys are capable of so much more. It felt like they were just put in a tag team so they were able to be put on TV more often. Because if they were singles guys, they would never see the light of day in terms of getting TV time. And they didn't. And they still haven't. It's not been until Penta's now come to WWE that he's actually been used as a singles guy again. And I imagine it'll be the same for Phoenix when Phoenix joins WWE, because I imagine he'll be leaving AEW soon, if he hasn't already. He'll be joining WWE again, and he'll be used as a singles guy. And despite very impressive presentation from WWE, luchadors haven't done well in WWE. Outside of Rey Mysterio, every luchador that they've tried to push is failed. Think about that. Every other luchador outside of Rey Mysterio that they've tried to push has failed. Sin Cara failed. Kalisto, even though Kalisto at one point was on a decent run, overall it failed. Who else? I'm trying to think of other guys. I can't even think of other guys. They've had luchador tag teams. It's not worked. Pentagon's got a very interesting sort of presentation, and WWE clearly are interested in him, but you need to be able to keep this up. You need to be able to sustain this. Now, it's all well and good having someone come in hot and great entrance and a few wins, but there needs to be some more substance there, where I need to see some more character work from Pentagon. I don't need to just see him come into the ring and do Canadian Destroyers. He was doing that in AEW. And he was just a tag team guy. So now that he's in WWE, I do like that they've put him straight onto the main roster, though, because again, he's a guy who's been wrestling for years. He doesn't need to be on NXT. Seems similar to Ricky Starks, but I'm not going to talk about Ricky Starks now, but guy's been wrestling for years and years and years. He doesn't need to be in developmental, and WWE have recognised that clearly with this one, and they've put him straight on the main roster. Very interesting presentation. I mean, obviously, the way he looks as well with the masks, the blue and black, the black and white. It's a great look. A great look. And that's why we love Pentagon so much, because his look is unique, his skill set is unique, his aura, if you will, his aura is unique. Pentagon's got a high ceiling as long as WWE sort of reciprocate the support that large amounts of his hardcore fan base have, which they don't always do. To be honest, they don't always do that. And I can see Pentagon fizzling out as well. In terms of WWE continuing to pushing him, and then slowly but surely, they realise this guy is probably not going to become a world champion. He's probably not going to become a main player. And sort of reactions just slowly die down. And that happens with a lot of guys. It happens with the majority of guys. Not many guys can be at the top of the card. By the nature of it. Only 2 guys can main event a show. If it's, assuming it's a 1v1, unless it's a tag team. But tag teams aren't main eventing shows. Only 2 guys can be main eventers, literally. Right? But Penta, his talent is undeniable, obviously. We all know that. Talent's undeniable. Hell of a wrestler. Capable of putting on some really fun matches. Just like anything, just like I said previously, it's all about execution, though. It's all about execution. What storylines will WWE put him in? Will they put belts on him? Will they do it early? It's all about execution. And then you've got Jacob Fatu. Now, Jacob Fatu, in my opinion, he's got the highest ceiling. If you're asking me, he's got the highest ceiling. He's got way more aura. Actually, does he got more? Has he got more aura? He does, because he's more. He can speak English better. I mean, that's actually a major factor as well. Pentagon's English isn't amazing. Over Jacob Fatu, whose English is, fine. He speaks it fluently. This is, I imagine, his first language. So Jacob Fatu, that immediately he's got the upper hand over Pentagon straight from the get go, and then you've got Jacob Fatu sort of his look as well. He's a big guy, super athletic. The only issue is there where you've got a guy who's so big yet so athletic. You're almost wondering, this guy could get injured quite easily because you're a guy who's, I don't know how big he is, 270, 280, jumping through ropes. Your body's not built to be doing that. You're not a midget like Kalisto or Rey Mysterio where you're weighing like 160 jumping off the top rope. Like, it's a bit more doable for your body, but not so doable for a guy like Jacob Fatu, who's, I imagine, 6 foot 270. And he's been injured a few times. He did have that ankle injury, I remember, around the time when he debuted, and he was wearing the boot. So, I mean, that's one thing, and I guess that's the same with both guys, where they've both got the sort of styles that are very athletic and potentially are very prone to injury. Even though I don't think Pentagon's really had too many injuries throughout his career, but I couldn't speak to it because obviously in Lucha Underground, if a guy's injured, unless they want you to know, you wouldn't know because of the nature of the show. And I wasn't watching him in TNA. And in AEW, he wasn't really used enough to know. It's not like Pentagon would be on TV every week for like 6 months and then 4 months he wouldn't be on. It would be like he'd be on it every now and again in a tag team. So even if you're injured, you can kind of hide it in a tag team match. That being said, I don't know if he ever was injured. He probably has had a few injuries, but it's because it's wrestling at the end of the day. But I say all of that to say, I think Jacob Fatu's promos are better. I think because of his size and because he's so big, he could probably put on more. He can probably match up better with a lot more guys. I think because Pentagon, he's not huge, but he's not small either. Because he's not the traditional luchador. He's not like a Kalisto. He's not like a Rey Mysterio where he's tiny. He's a decent sized guy doing really athletic stuff as well. So both guys can match up pretty well with a lot of the roster. But then you get these sort of aura matchups with Jacob Fatu, where it's like Jacob Fatu v Braun Strowman or Jacob Fatu v Bronson Reed. Like, these are matches that I would love to see, and they're not world title matches, right? And that's the thing with Jacob Fatu. He's got a lot of interesting matchups because of his style. So in my opinion, I actually think Jacob Fatu has got the highest ceiling in WWE, even though I've got mad love for Penta, and I think he's going to have potentially a very good career in WWE, depending on execution. But yeah, we'll see what's next for both of these guys. They're both very interesting talents, and both guys that have got high ceilings in WWE, and no doubt, I'm sure both of these guys will make WWE a ton of cash. But I say all of that to say, we talked about a few things in this episode, a lot of WWE talk, mostly WWE talk, talked about potential opponents for John Cena at WrestleMania 41, and we talked about who's got the highest ceiling, Pentagon Jr. or Jacob Fatu. That's it from me. I've been Seth, and I'm out. Peace.